Welcome. You've arrived at the edge of sleep. And tonight, I'll take you back, gently, to a time when the world moved slower, and the night was sacred. 2,000 years ago, the evening didn't hum with electricity or the glow of distant cities. It unfolded slowly, as the sun sank behind rolling hills and rooftops of clay. There were no alarm clocks to wind down for. No buzzing phones or streaming shows. Only the hush of a world dimming by firelight. So come with me, and let's wander through time. Not to find action, but stillness. Let's drift from one ancient land to another, Rome, Egypt, Greece, and China. And see how people, much like you, slowly prepared for sleep. The stories will be quiet. The details soft. And soon, you'll feel your own eyelids growing heavy, just as theirs did long ago. Let's begin, where every day began to end. At sunset. In the ancient world, sunset was the world's way of saying, it's time to rest. Shadows grew long across mosaic floors. The smell of bread lingered in the kitchens. And families returned from the fields, the markets, or the public baths. The air would cool, and doors would close slowly. You could hear sandals brushing against worn stone, soft conversations in courtyards, and the sound of animals being fed before nightfall. Oil lamps were lit, one by one. They flickered with a gentle hiss, tiny fires fed with care. Children watched the flames, sleepy already, lulled by the rhythm of home. In Rome, wealthy families might recline in their dining rooms, sharing quiet conversation over fruits and honeyed wine. In a humble village, someone might be folding linen cloth, placing it gently at the foot of a shared bed. In Egypt, the Nile shimmered under a darkening sky as fishermen returned and candles glowed behind reed walls. No screens, no rush. Only the slow exhale of another day gone by. Let's step into a few places. And simply listen. In ancient Rome, evening bathing was common. Before bed, many would visit the balnea, the public baths, or take a quick wash at home using a small basin and scented oil. Feet were rinsed. Hands wiped clean. And the body warmed with soft linen, rubbed with olive oil or herbal balm. There were prayers too. Small thanks offered to household gods, like the Lares and Penates. Tiny statues stood in niches, and a piece of bread or a drop of wine was left as a quiet offering. Then, it was time to dim the lamps and retreat into sleep. In ancient Egypt, sleep came with the stars. After sundown, villagers near the Nile would light simple rush candles, made from reeds dipped in fat. They gave off a gentle, earthy scent, like grasses and warm oils. Children were often rocked in hammocks, swaying softly in the breeze. Adults lay on woven mats or low wooden frames, fanning themselves slowly with palm fronds. Priests, nobles, and farmers alike believed in protective deities, like Bes, the dwarf god of sleep, who guarded dreams and babies. Bes figurines were placed at the foot of beds or carved into walls to watch over sleepers. The desert wind would whisper through papyrus shutters. And the night, at last, became still. In ancient Greece, the evenings were philosophical. Families often sat outside for a little while, in the cool breeze of the courtyard, sipping diluted wine, sharing stories, or listening to elders speak. Some recited lines of Homer or whispered prayers to Hypnos, the god of sleep. Lavender and thyme were hung near doors to ward off evil spirits. The hearth fire, sacred to Hestia, was dimmed carefully, not extinguished in haste. Then, it was to the Greek bed, where the night took over. Woolen blankets, stuffed pillows, and beds raised off the floor created a soft cocoon. Sleep was not rushed. It was welcomed slowly. In ancient China, the day ended in a harmonious rhythm. Families gathered to drink warm tea, sometimes herbal, with chrysanthemum or ginseng, before closing the outer wooden shutters. Sleeping mats were laid out neatly on raised platforms. Silk or hemp bedding was folded with care. A small incense burner, shaped like a dragon or crane, was lit to fill the room with calming scent. Many followed teachings from Taoist or Confucian traditions. A balanced day deserved a peaceful night. And so, balance was kept, in the way one drifted toward dreams. Unlike today, people 2,000 years ago embraced the dark. Darkness was not something to fear, it was the natural doorway to sleep. There were no buzzing bulbs. Just the faint flicker of firelight, or the silver wash of moonbeams. Eyes adjusted. Hearts slowed. And people leaned into the hush. Even city dwellers slept beneath a starlit sky far brighter than most of us have ever seen. The Milky Way stretched overhead like a flowing river of light. Some whispered myths about it before bed. Others simply stared up and drifted away. The night sky was a lullaby of its own. Now, let's gently step inside. Imagine you're approaching a simple bedroom 2,000 years ago. There is no ceiling fan, no nightstand filled with books, and certainly no charging cables tangled near the pillow. What you find instead is softness in its own way. In many parts of the ancient world, bedrooms were not separate rooms, but spaces tucked into the corner of a larger home. Shared rooms. Shared warmth. There might be a curtain drawn across a wooden beam, or a low wall separating sleepers from the rest of the household. In colder places, people slept near the kitchen, the last warm room of the night. And what of the beds? In Rome, wealthier homes had wooden frames with rope lattice, thick cloth or straw mats stretched over them. In Greece, the recline was elegant but functional, often angled for reclining. In rural Egypt, people slept on palmwood slats or packed earth platforms. In China, many homes featured kang beds, raised platforms heated from underneath by a stove, to warm both body and spirit. The pillows weren't always soft. In some places, people used headrests carved from wood or stone. In Egypt and China, these were often cool to the touch, shaped to cradle the neck rather than the head. It may sound strange now, but they believed it helped dreams flow more clearly. And over time, the body adjusted. Bedding materials varied. Some used wool or cotton. Others relied on straw, feathers, or folded fabrics. Blankets were handmade, stitched with care, heavy and comforting. Every object in the bedroom had a purpose. And each evening, those items gathered together in harmony. To bring sleep closer. Now close your eyes for a moment, and imagine what the night felt like. The scents in these rooms were rich, but never overwhelming. A bit of beeswax from the lamp. A wisp of smoke from burnt incense. Maybe a trace of lavender, frankincense, or dried rose petals pressed into cloth. In China, sandalwood and camphor were common, gentle and soothing. In Greece, people rubbed mint or oil of thyme into their temples. In Rome, rose water was sprinkled on pillows. And in Egypt, crushed myrrh was used as a soft balm on the skin before bed. Sounds were different, too. There were no engines or alarms. Only the whisper of wind through trees, the hum of insects, the distant call of a night bird. If you listened very closely, you might hear a water jug shifting slightly in the cool air, or the soft breathing of someone beside you. The sounds of ancient sleep were low, warm, and close to the earth. Did you know that 2,000 years ago, people often slept in two parts? Historians call it segmented sleep. The first sleep would begin a little after sunset, sometimes within an hour or two. People would sleep deeply for a few hours, then wake briefly. In that quiet in-between, often around midnight, some might rise to stir the fire, sip water, or even talk softly with others. It was a peaceful time, not seen as an interruption, but as part of the natural rhythm of sleep. And after an hour or so, they would lie back down. The second sleep would begin. Deep, dream-filled, and stretching into the cool of early morning. This pattern wasn't strange. It was understood, expected. A gentle flow between rest and wakefulness, with no pressure, no clocks. Even monks and scholars wrote about this time. Some would pray, others would think. And then, they'd sleep again. Sleep wasn't just a bodily need. To many ancient people, it was a sacred passage. In Egypt, dreams were thought to be messages from the divine. Temple priests interpreted them. And some even slept in special sanctuaries, hoping to receive healing visions from gods like Serapis or Imhotep. In Greece, Hypnos, the god of sleep, was said to live in a quiet cave, where night flowed like a gentle stream. Dreams were delivered by his sons, Morpheus for human forms, Phobeter for animals, and Phontissos for strange, surreal images. Romans spoke of Somnus, the god of sleep, and paid close attention to what they dreamed. And in China, it was believed the soul could travel during sleep, drifting through other realms, guided by harmony or troubled by imbalance. So people often protected their sleep. They hung charms, placed stones under their pillows, prayed quietly before closing their eyes. And in doing so, they created not just rest, but ritual. Sleep was both sacred and soothing, an act of both the body and the spirit, and finally, when all was quiet, the lamps burned low, the air cooled, and sleep took its final hold. A mother might hum quietly beside her child. A merchant might breathe out the last worry of the day. A farmer, sore from labor, would sink into dreams without a word. There were no sleep trackers, no midnight scrolling, just the old, familiar rhythm of rest. Night after night. In villages, in cities, in temples and homes, people closed their eyes under the same stars you see now. And they dreamed. The night passes quietly. And then, just as slowly as the day had faded, it began again. In the ancient world, mornings didn't begin with buzzing alarms or glowing screens. They began with soft light creeping over hills and rooftops, spilling into clay-walled rooms, and touching the faces of those still sleeping. Roosters might call in the distance. Dogs stir gently near the door. And one by one, sleepers begin to wake. The sun, once again, is the clock. And its golden fingers stretch across woven mats and linen bed sheets. There is no rush, no urgency, just a quiet stirring. In Egypt, soft sunlight filtered through reed blinds. In Rome, light slipped between wooden shutters. In Greece, a breeze passed through an open courtyard, rustling grapevines. And in China, gentle warmth spread across the sloped rooftops of tiled homes. The world rose slowly, as it always had. Waking was not a frantic leap from sleep, it was a slow, familiar routine. A woman in ancient China might open her eyes, stretch her arms toward the wooden ceiling, and reach for a nearby tea bowl left from the night before. She would light a bit of incense and breathe deeply, letting its scent mark the day's beginning. In Greece, a man might rinse his face with cool water from a clay jug. He'd dry it on linen and whisper thanks to the gods for another sunrise. Children in Egypt rubbed their eyes and sat up on reed mats, their hair tousled by the night. The scent of yesterday's bread still lingered as the first pot of water was placed on the fire. In Roman homes, slaves or servants often lit the first household flame, tending to warmth, water, and clothing before their masters even stirred. But in simple homes, everyone rose together. And waking was just as much a ritual as sleeping. Before the day truly began, ancient people freshened themselves. Quietly, deliberately. Water was drawn, sometimes cold, sometimes warmed by coals, and poured into bowls made of clay, bronze, or polished stone. In Rome, even modest homes had a small lavatrina or washing corner. A cloth would be dipped, wrung out, and pressed to the face and neck. In Egypt, washing was often communal, families sharing water to clean their hands, feet, and faces. The cool water revived the senses, especially after a long, warm night near the Nile. In China, men and women combed their hair with carved bone or wood, smoothing oils through the strands. Even children were taught to begin the day clean, as a mark of dignity, not vanity. Clothing, too, had meaning. Linen tunics, hemp robes, or woolen wraps were arranged not quickly, but with attention, each fold reminding the wearer of their place, their routine, their rhythm. Even waking was a kind of peace. Breakfast was not extravagant, but it was deeply human. A small piece of flatbread, dipped in honey or olive oil. A few olives, some figs, or a cup of wine diluted with water. Sometimes, porridge made from barley or millet, warm and simple. People ate what was near, what had been saved, what had been baked the day before. In Rome, servants might bring a tray to a master's room, or families would gather in the atrium. In rural Greece, the hearth was still warm from the night before, a pot of grain left simmering slowly. Egyptians loved dates and honey cakes. While in China, warm tea and steamed rice porridge soothed both throat and belly. Food was not a performance. It was a quiet transition from night to day. And in the calm of those early hours, the world still felt drowsy, as if it, too, had just woken from sleep. The morning sounds were gentle. Birds chirped in nearby trees. Cattle stirred in their pens. In villages, you might hear soft sweeping, the sound of someone brushing dirt from a courtyard or steps. Maybe a cough, a yawn, the clang of a pot. Even the cities were not truly loud. Rome might hum with carts and footsteps. But in the early hours, before the forum filled, you could hear the splash of water and fountains. In Athens, bells rang from market stalls being opened. In Thebes, riverboats creaked as they floated quietly by. All across the world, the noise of waking life built slowly, never sharp or sudden. The morning belonged to those who moved gently. 2,000 years ago. Sleep was not something to conquer. It was something to cherish. People did not boast about how little sleep they got. They did not set timers for productivity. They allowed the body to rest, fully, completely. In many traditions, rest was seen as a gift from the gods. In Taoist China, balance between rest and action was essential to long life. In Greece, philosophers spoke of how dreams could hold insight, and that sleep kept the soul in harmony. In Egypt, it was part of the eternal cycle, like the Nile's flooding, the moon's return, and the passage to the afterlife. In Rome, poets praised sleep as the great equalizer. The noble and poor alike closed their eyes under the same sky. Sleep was not a burden. It was a comfort. A returning home. As we end this part of the journey, let your thoughts return to those soft evenings. The rustle of a blanket. The hiss of an oil lamp. The smell of fresh straw and rose water. Remember how slowly the night arrived. How sleep was welcomed, not forced. How rooms were dark but never lonely. And how dreams floated gently, not urgently. The ancient world had no insomnia clinics, no sleep tracking apps. Only the soft rhythm of night and day, woven into each moment. So tonight, as you fall asleep, feel your own breath slowing. Like the hush that came over Rome, over Thebes, over Chang'an, 2,000 years ago. Close your eyes now, and drift back through time, until even time itself is asleep. Now, we drift far from the cities, away from tiled villas and market stalls, into the open countryside, where sleep met the earth more closely. In rural parts of the ancient world, homes were built from mud brick, straw, stone, or earth itself. The walls were thick, the windows small. And at night, everything fell still. So still, you could hear the trees creak, or an owl call from far beyond the hills. The air smelled of hay, and soil, and wood smoke. Families often shared one or two sleeping spaces. Sometimes, livestock were kept nearby, their soft breath warming the room through the night. There were no doors to close off noise. Only quiet. Natural, honest quiet, broken only by wind and breath. Sleep, here, was part of the land. In these quiet places, people slept early, and deeply. The body, exhausted from physical labor, welcomed the night like an old friend. The sun dictated the pace of life. Field workers would rise and sleep with it, no need for bells or announcements. There was satisfaction in sleep earned by movement. Tending vines, planting grain, walking for hours under sun and sky. Evening meals were quiet and hearty, bread, lentils, dried fruits, and a little cheese. And sleep came soon after. Sometimes, families would lie together on thick mats. Or parents would share a bed while children rested close by, the rhythm of breath weaving through the silence. The fire might be banked for warmth. A dog curled near the door. And darkness filled every corner. Yet there was comfort, in the closeness of life. Farther still, beyond towns and fields, some lived without fixed walls. Nomadic tribes moved with seasons, winds, and animals. And with them, their sleep shifted too, always simple, always adaptable. In Central Asia, nomads slept in yurts, round felt-covered tents. The beds were layered with wool and fur. A fire burned at the center, with a chimney hole above, letting smoke curl into the stars. In the deserts of Arabia, people slept under the open sky or in black goat hair tents. They wrapped themselves in thick robes to stay warm, and listened to the desert sing them to sleep. And across the steppes, tribes rested with their horses nearby, the ground as their mattress, the stars as their ceiling. They trusted the wind, and knew the songs of the night better than anyone. Sleep also belonged to the sacred. Across the ancient world, temples weren't only places for prayer, some offered sleep as healing. In Greece and Rome, the practice of incubation was common, sleeping in a temple hoping for divine dreams. At the Asclepian, worshippers of the healing god Asclepius would lie on stone benches or straw beds in quiet chambers. Priests burned incense and sang hymns, guiding worshippers into sleep. They believed dreams held messages, diagnoses, cures, or wisdom from beyond. In Egypt, temples had similar sanctuaries. People seeking clarity or peace might sleep near statues of gods, wrapped in linen, with sacred oils rubbed into their skin. Sleep, in these spaces, was an act of faith. A doorway between the physical and the divine. Whether in a temple or tent, a palace or a stable, everyone, eventually, surrendered to sleep. The powerful slept in luxury. Emperors reclined on cushions of dyed silk. Pharaohs slept on carved beds of ivory and gold. Lords and ladies had chambermaids to tuck their sheets, and guards outside their doors. Yet still, they dreamed. Just like the shepherd curled in a cave. Just like the seamstress curled beside her loom. Sleep did not ask about your wealth. It came when it wished. To the rich and the poor, the loud and the quiet. And when it arrived, even kings became silent. And there were times when sleep didn't happen indoors at all. On rooftops in the heat of summer. On boats beneath the stars. On mountain paths during long journeys. People made the earth their bed, the sky their blanket. In Rome, it was common in hot seasons to sleep outdoors. In Greece, children sometimes fell asleep beneath fig trees, waiting for dinner. And in the East, travelers paused their caravan for the night, unrolling mats under a sea of stars. There was no fear. Only breath, sky, and silence. To sleep in the open was to feel close to the universe. And be reminded how small and peaceful we really are. Across oceans, valleys, deserts and hills, the ancient world slept in unison. Thousands of years ago, in every direction, people closed their eyes at the same time. Not perfectly, but together in rhythm. Children nestled against their mothers. Old men settled into straw beds. Priests offered final prayers. Merchants sighed into silence. And the world, once bustling with voices and steps, softened into stillness. It was the same moon watching over them all. The same stars whispering the same lullabies. The same breath rising and falling in peaceful sleep. So tonight, as you rest your own body, know that this peace has always existed. And it is yours, too. As we reach the final moments of our journey, you may feel the world inside you becoming quieter. Your thoughts softer. Your breath deeper. And as you lie there, still and calm, you might realize something extraordinary. That sleep, the act of letting go, has never truly changed. No matter how far back we travel, 2,000 years or more, people closed their eyes with the same hopes. To be warm, to be safe, to forget their worries, and return, renewed. Across generations, cultures, and landscapes, sleep has wrapped itself around us like a timeless blanket, unchanging, loyal, and endlessly patient. And even now, in this modern age, that ancient rhythm still echoes in your own heartbeat. Have you ever wondered what someone dreamed about 2,000 years ago? What did an Egyptian mother see behind her closed eyes after a long day beside the Nile? What drifted through the mind of a Greek philosopher as he lay beneath the fig trees? What images filled the dreams of a Chinese monk who had walked all day in silence? Perhaps their dreams were not so different from ours. They dreamt of loved ones lost, of voices long silenced, of cool rivers and warm bread, of stories told at firelight, of gods who listened, and lands far beyond the hills. In sleep, we're all the same, vulnerable, curious, and endlessly human. Tonight, as you rest, you're not alone. You lie down beside every soul who ever lived and longed for rest. Beside Roman soldiers, Egyptian scribes, Chinese poets, Greek shepherds, and Mesopotamian bakers. They, too, listened to the night. They, too, shifted under wool or linen. They, too, blinked at stars and wondered what tomorrow might bring. In this vast stretch of human history, you are part of the same gentle thread, woven not by events, but by moments of quiet. By the simple act of closing your eyes and letting go. You are not rushing anywhere now. You are already where you need to be. And now, let your body feel heavy, your limbs relaxed, your thoughts far away. There is nothing you must do. No story left to follow. No history left to remember. You've already walked through centuries, seen into temples and tents, listened to winds that have long since fallen silent. Now, it is your turn. To rest. To drift. To dream. Sleep welcomes you the way it welcomed them. Gently. Without question. So let the stars hang overhead. Let the oil lamp flicker softly in your mind. Let the clay walls fade into shadow. And let the hush of night cradle you, until morning finds you once more. Good night. And sleep well. You are safe. And deeply, deeply at rest.